right, good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to another edition of PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Jason London. I am faculty with Institute for Clinical Excellence in our Endurance Athlete Division, teaching both the Injured Runner course and the Injured Cyclist course or the Bike Fitting course. And today what I want to talk to you about is orthotics and the use of orthotics. Definitely in the endurance athlete population, we see a pretty high frequency of athletes coming in who already have orthotics or ask questions about the use of orthotics for treating their injury or allowing them to run with less pain, etc. And I think a common question comes up into the mind of a lot of clinicians is, does the use of orthotics with unloading that tissue, does that cause your feet to get weaker? Well, that's just been kind of conjecture, over the years, especially I think more people have thought about that since Born to Run came out over 10 years ago. But recently there was a new paper that came out that studied that exact question. So the paper was in the Journal of Clinical Biomechanics, came out this month, August 2020, came out a little earlier online. And the title is The Effect of a 12-Week Custom Foot Orthotic Intervention on Muscle Size and Muscle Activity of the Intrinsic Foot Muscles of Young Adults During Gait Termination. The authors were Katrina Protopappas and Stephen Perry. And Katrina Protopappas had done this as part of her dissertation in the kinesiology program. And so what the study was well designed. So she had a group of 18 healthy adults with pes planus, and they looked at kinematic variables, kinetic variables, muscle mass, and muscle activation. So for the kinetic variables, they had them walk barefoot on a track with force plates embedded. Kinetic variables, they looked at 3D motion capture system, camera-based system. For looking at muscle mass, they used real-time ultrasound imaging and then calculated the cross-sectional area of 3 foot intrinsic muscles, the flexor digitorum brevis, the abductor digiti minimi, and the abductor hallucis. And then lastly, they also looked at EMG. So they captured all this data initially for this group of 18 individuals, and then they divided the group into 2. So they had half of them just kind of continue life as normal, and then the other half were prescribed custom foot orthotics that were done by a podiatrist with 25 years of experience, and then were told to participate in the study they needed to wear the custom orthotics for a minimum of 6 hours a day and for 12 weeks. They brought both groups back at 6 weeks, ran them through the same routine, and then they brought them back at 12 weeks and ran them through the same routine. And what they found was interesting. So they really didn't find any differences between groups at the 0 time point, which you would think since the intervention hadn't been used, and you'd hope that there wasn't a difference with that. There wasn't really too much of a difference at the 6-week mark. There was a small, significant, but probably not clinically significant difference in muscle mass of the abductor hallucis. And then at 12 weeks, there was a significant difference in the muscle mass of the abductor hallucis, the flexor digitorum brevis, and the abductor digiti minimi in the group that was wearing orthotics. And so we saw a decrease in the cross-sectional area by around 15 to 17% in all 3 of those muscles, and where that was not seen in the the group that did not wear the orthotics. Interestingly, there were no real differences in the kinematics, kinetics, or EMG. So again, we see a significant difference in the amount of muscle mass in these foot intrinsics in those who had worn orthotics for 12 weeks, but we don't see any really clinically significant difference yet. And maybe they didn't quite, they could have measured some other things too and found more of a clinically significant difference. But with the measures that they did, which I thought were good measures, they really didn't find much of a difference other than that cross-sectional area. So we can postulate that maybe if we push that study out another 12 weeks, so it's 6 months, maybe then we'd be seeing a clinically significant difference. Nonetheless, they did see a difference in cross-sectional area of those muscles, particularly the one that's stands to me as the most important, which I'm glad was included in the study, was that abductor hallucis, because over and over again in research on the foot and balance and control of the medial longitudinal arch, we see the importance of the abductor hallucis, and we see studies that show that you can strengthen the abductor hallucis very well with foot intrinsic exercises, particularly the short arch exercise. So if you have your flat arch like this, which is much like my foot, and you have them do an arch hollowing exercise, so where they are trying to raise their medial longitudinal arch, that is your arch hollowing exercise, and that's an isometric that you have them perform for 5 to 10 seconds, many reps, and then they start out sitting, and then you progress to doing other activities with that, standing, single leg stance activities, etc. And there's been multiple studies that have looked at this and show that you can increase the cross-sectional area of the abductor hallucis, as well as get some clinically significant differences in terms of balance and control of pronation. So again, this new study by Protopopis is the first study to really look at, do orthotics cause disuse atrophy? And the answer is yes. Is it clinically significant based on the study? We don't know, but we can postulate. It adds a little bit of fuel for the fire. It was obviously a very small study, only 18 subjects, healthy subjects, but I think it's a good launch pad where hopefully we'll see some studies either out of this group or other groups in the future for that. So to wind it all back and to the discussion regarding orthotics, does that mean we shouldn't be prescribing orthotics, or we should be bashing orthotics, to those patients, those endurance athletes that are coming in and asking that? Absolutely not. I think part of what we're trying to do with orthotics, if you're using it in the clinic, it's load management. And for the vast majority of patients, in my mind, that should be a temporary solution. And particularly with runners, and it should make clinical sense. Okay, so you want to do a good job of measuring what their foot position is and what the angles are when they're in subtalar neutral, but then also bring that into how is it looking clinically. So getting them at the very least walking and balancing and seeing how the control they have with the arch is with that pronation, which is kind of the easiest thing to see. And then adding in the intervention and retesting and seeing that the changes that you wanted to make with the orthosis are changes that you made, and then gain patient feedback. So I don't use foot orthotics very often with runners. I kind of tend to fall more in the camp of really trying to have them strengthen and control on their own. But for those that are really struggling, or those that are unable to run without pain because of that tissue loading, I will use them temporarily. And I do think it's important to look at both the rear foot and the forefoot. If it's just rear foot, typically they'll do fine with just an off-the-shelf orthotic, such as a Superfeet. If it's the forefoot as well, then using a semi-custom orthotic where you are, we use Vasili, which is semi-custom, and then do some posting for the forefoot with that too. But then educating the patient that we're thinking of this as a temporary measure, not necessarily wanting them to wear it all the time. And then adding in that foot intrinsic strengthening. So, this paper helps support, that thought. So we're giving them the short foot exercise, and then also giving them toe yoga. So that's where, again, if you think of this as my foot, they are pushing their big toe down while lifting their other toes up while maintaining contact on the ground with their metatarsal heads, and then reversing course there, That's another great foot intrinsic strengthening exercise that give out regularly. With cyclists and skiers, my thought process is a little bit different. I'm more likely to put them in an orthotic or orthosis right away. And the thought here is that, in running and walking, pronation is a natural movement pattern that should be happening to help absorb shock and just allow the body to move how it's been designed to move. And in cycling and skiing, your foot is in a relatively fixed position, so that prolonged pronation or greater excursion of pronation is a detriment to performance, and it really can drive where the knee and the hip are in those two sports. So again, really looking at, clinically, does it make sense? And then, doing test retest and seeing, do their mechanics look better, particularly with cycling, which you can do in the clinic. Skiing's a little hard, but, do their mechanics look better? Do they subjectively feel better in that orthotic? And for cycling and skiing, kind of looking at that for more the long term, but then not using it in their footwear outside of that sport. But again, with runners, looking at it for, temporary. I certainly have had runners come in with orthotics where they're overposted, and that's causing their issue as well. So it's just as simple as getting rid of the orthotic, and then that solves that problem. So in the end, there is some evidence, maybe moderate to weak, that foot orthotics do cause weakening or disuse atrophy of the foot intrinsic, namely the abductor hallucis. Therefore, we do want to add in foot intrinsic strengthening if we're prescribing orthotics, and typically thinking of using orthotics in most cases as a temporary measure to supplement what you're doing with your load management and other things that you'd be doing in the clinic to treat those patients. So have a happy Friday, everyone. Hope to see many of you at the sampler tomorrow. Really stoked on that. It's going to be a great lineup of presentations. Already have gotten 10 hours of bonus content. So, even though it might be a little bit of a bummer that, we can't do it live, I look forward to every year seeing everyone, both everyone who's attending and the faculty. It's going to come off and be really well done, I think, and you're getting more content than you would get if you're attending it live. So happy Friday, get outside and exercise, and I think I got dual live Instagram TV and Facebook for the first time. We'll see.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.